And welcome in to another injury-plagued waiver wire episode of the Fantasy 4-Pack. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale and Frankie Santiago, here to break down some of the week's more injuries to starting players. So many more. Not as bad as last week, and they're a lot more temporary, but more. Let's go through the news, and we'll fill you guys in on all the injuries if you missed a few of them on Sunday. And then we'll get to the 3 and out. We'll do some waiver wire, and yeah. Michael Pittman Jr., we were sad about this one because we were hyping him up a little bit as, a potential successor to Paris Campbell, high draft capital, talented rookie, should be able to mesh with Phillip Rivers. No longer out for the season. He had surgery today. So if you listened to us and picked him up, we're sorry, and you should drop him now.
I'm sorry that I owned him at one point.
Rostered him, Frankie?
Yes.
Tariq Cohen, also out for the season. Another ACL. It's a little bit of an uptick for David Montgomery, but...
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that I want to trade for now.
I also rostered him.
Yeah, it sucks. You hate to see it happen. Cohen's a fun player to watch, especially when he's firing on all cylinders. You haven't got to really see that with these Bears, but now at least you don't have to feel sorry that he has to play on the Bears because he's out for the year. Speaking of the Bears, Trubisky benched. They now have Foles in there. Don't really think it matters. If you were starting your Bears, you're already starting your Bears. This doesn't make anyone else relevant. Probably the most high-profile one of the week here. Chris Carson with a ugly knee sprain. And I think the ugliest thing about the knee sprain, honestly, wasn't the actual sprain itself. It was like the way it got sprained. I don't know if you guys watched the replay, but Carson goes to the ground. He lunges a little bit, try and get that extra yard, and then he's just laying there. And the guy that took him down, I saw it described on Twitter as a gator roll. He has his leg clutched like this, and he does like a death roll, like like a gator does when it has its prey in its jaws, and just rips his knee around. Fortunately, MRI was done. They're saying it's a pretty no torn ligaments. It's a pretty minor sprain, hopefully. So we should be able to see him back on the field in short order. But I would be surprised if he plays this week.
Yeah, it's one of those injuries you hate to see, and Pete Carroll's already voiced his opinion that he's pretty pissed about this, and rightfully so. Like you can see, he's just grabbing an extra yard or two on the way to the ground, just clean hit all the way through, and then just as the play is about to be completely done, he just spins, like using his own momentum, not like he fell, and just clearly goes for the dirty play.
Yeah, there's no place for that in football. Like, get that guy out of the league. I don't often call for people's jobs, but like he should be dropped. And no one should pick him up. Like, if you're intentionally hurting players, you don't deserve to have a job in the National Football League.
Fair enough.
I've had that stance way back since the Patriot killer. What was his name?
Mr. Pollard.
Thank you, Bernard Pollard, who seemed like he had a particular joy of killing Patriots. Or like Vontaze Burfict, players like that hunt for injuries, get them out of the game. Dallas Goedert, another sad one because he was looking like he had a pretty good start to the year. High ankle, he's going to miss some time. It's good news if you're an Ertz manager, but bad news if you are an Eagles fan or Carson Wentz. Like, if you're Carson Wentz, you are not happy about this because you already had no one to throw to. Now you got one less guy.
Yeah, you're now looking at locker room of two guys and fan B. You're just like, I got Miles Sanders, I got Ertz, and now you got a guy we're going to talk about later in the show, but we're still not jazzed about it. It's not like we're like, ooh, lock this guy in.
It's more like, well, somebody has to catch the ball. To follow up the Dallas Goedert news, sticking with the theme of Eagles, Deshaun Jackson has a hamstring. Stop me if you've heard this before.
I haven't though, because normally this is usually following a 2-touchdown, 300-yard game or something like that.
True, he didn't give us the signature Deshaun Jackson performance before riding off into the sunset. He just rode off into the sunset.
Listen,
he's like the Abe Simpson meme where he just walks in, puts his hat up, does a circle, picks his hat back up, and walks back out.
Listen, every receiver in the league apparently has a hamstring injury this year, so this isn't exactly surprising to me.
I mean, it is also Deshaun Jackson, who has made a career out of hamstring injuries, it seems like. But also, bad news if you're an Eagles fan or Carson Wentz, because there's literally no one to throw to. Like you got to feel bad for the guy. I mean, he's lost like 3 offensive linemen, all of his receivers, one of his top 2 tight ends, like.
Yeah, like it's
maybe the Eagles will sit this one out.
Yeah, we literally joke about this. It's like, oh, by the time we hit mid-season, this is what they're supposed to look like. We just got through week 3. We're not even at the quarter mark.
What's in the water in Philadelphia that's causing all these injuries? Are they just like, are they having like hit yourself in the knee with a hammer day in that locker room where they all just like come in? It's like, all right, everyone, line up, knee in the locker door. We're slamming your knees one at a time. Got to toughen those knees up.
I think it's kind of a battle right now between them and San Francisco. Who's going to have more injuries by the end of the year?
They're just standing there like Happy Gilmore, just hitting themselves in the parts that get injured with like blunt objects, trying to toughen themselves up. Except
no, it's exactly
it's not a movie, so
it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They're basically just recreating those shows and having rock fights in empty pools.
Yeah. I hope the Eagles stop getting hurt because they're running out of players.
And somebody in the NFC East has to be good.
Yeah. Nope. We've seen it before. We literally saw it last year. The NFC East can get into the playoffs with a bad record. John Brown has a calf. Hopefully it doesn't really cost him too much time. It's, I guess, good news if you're Stephon Diggs, who already is having a pretty nice start to his year. His quarterback, Josh Allen, don't know if you heard of him, but he's been doing his best Russell Wilson impression so far to start this year. So bit of an uptick for Stephon Diggs you possibly can. If he misses time, I like Cole Beasley because it's Cole Beasley. He's like Adam Humphries but on the Bills. Like, he's just going to go out there and catch 5 or 6 balls for 56 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, as I said with you, as this week was concluding, I bet there's a lot of managers out there who, with the amount of injuries, you were staring across the lineup sheet at Cole Beasley getting started against you, and you're like, here we go. He's going to come out for 20 yards and just help me coast to a win here. But then nice hundo yards dropped on your face.
Yep.
Because, of course, it's Cole Beasley.
This is the look of someone screaming internally. I'll flip to the other side. What's causing me to scream internally? While I watched Cole Beasley drop 100 yards on my face, I got to watch Deontay Johnson get me I believe it was 5 yards, because Deontay Johnson sadly left this game with a concussion before he could do anything. I hate injuries in all facets officially, in case I didn't make that clear before, but at least it's just a concussion. He doesn't have a history of them. Hopefully this is because it happened literally on Sunday. No history. Hopefully he misses at most a week. We're still listing his replacement, James Washington, as an ad later this episode. But obviously, if that's one where that's going to be a little bit of a more monitor this situation, because if Deontay plays this week, I have no interest in the people behind him. Chris Godwin also went down with a hamstring. This really sucks if you spent a high pick on Chris Godwin, because you've gotten almost no Chris Godwin so far this year. First concussion, now hamstring. It sounds like he's in danger of missing week 4. So if you're looking for what you can expect with Chris Godwin, maybe go ask your Kenny Golladay managers how they're feeling right now.
Yeah, this season's already starting to the point where it's not a huge stretch to assume that somebody's first 4 to 5 picks are already on the shelf.
I'm actually in a league with someone who has lost all 5 of their first 5 picks. It's one of the leagues that I'm in on Sleeper. They drafted Christian McCaffrey, Chris Godwin, George Kittle, Chris Carson, and AJ
Brown.
Thank you, AJ Brown.
Yep.
I was thinking of the other jacked receiver that came in that class. So they're not feeling too good right now. But yeah, no, this is brutal. Like the war of attrition that's going on in the NFL this season needs to stop. I'm glad that we're getting to week 4, which is the end of the preseason for most of these players, basically. So that way they're going to be more or less NFL ready to play, and hopefully the injuries slow down a little bit.
Yeah, like if I end up winning one of my leagues, I don't want to feel like I was the guy who made it across the minefield, and I look back and just, oh, no one made it. That's why. You're playing a team who's like, well, I'm starting Frank Gore and Fan B in Philadelphia against you.
Yep.
You're the one player who got a first-round pick against me, so I guess you just win this.
Now, speak for yourself. I'll take a trophy. It's fine.
Yeah, but you don't want to have the asterisk. You don't want to be like, this was the COVID season when everyone was hurt.
No, there's no asterisk.
No, there is.
No, there's no
Russell
asterisk.
Gage, down with a concussion. Early in the game, too. Like, that was another painful one for fantasy managers, because if you were rolling out Russell Gage, like you were rolling out with some measure of confidence that he was going to deliver for your team. Julio was out. It was going to be a bit of a shootout. The stars were aligning for you to be able to put together another Russell Gage performance like you got a couple out of him last year. Gone. Just snuffed out immediately.
Yeah, like this week is less massive injuries. This is more of just like
speak for yourself.
Any hope that Deontay was at least still on the lower side.
Yeah, I know.
He wasn't like a first or third round pick. Like they're just going through anyone with this a little bit of hope. You're like, oh, there's some young talent. This could be the next generation. This could be the next Larry Fitz or whatnot, and just crushing it. Just like, oh, you liked Paris Campbell? Boom. Michael Pittman? Boom. Russell Gage? Boom. They're just like everything you love in this world. They're taking it from you.
But at least all of Gage's targets went to Hayden Hurt. Oh, wait, they didn't. 1 for 1 for... I'm not salty about that at all. And then to close out the injury news, 2 guys that I think no one is shocked that they got hurt. Jerick McKinnon out with ribs, and Jordan Reed out with an ankle. So, 2 guys who are always, like... I just kind of assume that they start the season with an injury designation just to, preemptively slap it on there.
I am at least surprised because it's not a concussion. So
True.
It is a little different.
True.
So, we're in kind of new territory. But once again, everyone's like, maybe Jordan Reed. He's on a tight end friendly team. Crushed.
Maybe this is just how Jordan Reed is asking the team to list his injuries so the doctors don't get suspicious. He's literally like, it's definitely a concussion. You're going to miss some time. Like, just say it's my ankle. I'll sit anyway. Just say it's my fucking ankle.
I mean, it could just be that the concussions are so bad he thinks it hurts in his ankle.
Where does it hurt?
Somewhere on my foot.
My ankle.
I just.
I feel bad for the guy, honestly.
Looking at the standings right now, just because they were on my screen. Who do you think is a more surprising 0-3 team, the Texans or the Falcons?
Falcons. 100% the Falcons, because they should be 3-0.
Yeah.
The Falcons are doing what should be mathematically impossible. They're beating math.
No, I think the bigger surprise when you look at that is that the Washington football team, after 3 weeks, is still on the top of the NFC East.
As we all expected, the undefeated Washington football team, led by that first ballot Hall of Famer, Dwayne Haskins. What if they win the NFC East? Frankie, are you gonna pick a new team if Washington wins the NFC East?
Now, they aren't undefeated. They are still 1-2.
True.
That's more so what I'm saying is.
I thought they were 2-1 at this point.
1-2, and they're leading their division. Just as extra salt in the Cowboys' wounds.
Hey, the Cowboys are 1-2.
Yeah, no,
they're fine.
Same with Riverboat Ron and his unnamed team.
Listen, we played Dangerous, if we're going by his Twitter at. Yeah, it's. I mean, we beat the Falcons.
Did you play Dangerous all 3 weeks, or?
Well, no, we.
You beat the Falcons, who apparently are going to be 0-16 this season, after they're going to go up 30 every game and then just somehow choke it away to every team they play.
Yeah, I mean, I saw someone already do a projection based on where all the standings are at right now. They have the Falcons with the second overall pick, so hope, I guess.
Yeah,
that like I said, that team is beating math.
I mean, at least they're putting up fantasy numbers.
Sure, it's great for fantasy managers, but I mean, you have to be actually they don't have the Falcons don't have fans, so there's no there's no one to feel bad about this. It's perfect. If any fans they still had left were no longer fans after they lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because I saw it on my screen and was.
All right, that's all of the injury news, unless someone got hurt in the last 5 minutes and I didn't have it written down, which, definitely a possibility. I'm sure at the time of posting this video, so tomorrow at noontime, there'll be 4 more players on this injury list.
I mean, someone could have gotten hurt in warm-ups for KC Baltimore, because it is about, for us, almost 30 minutes to kickoff.
Yep. True. I didn't even consider... Yeah, so watch out for all of the injuries that are undoubtedly going to come from this game after we post this. Let's get into the 3 and outs. Frankie, you want to lead us off today? And
Sure.
I think we usually have you lead off 3 and out.
Yeah.
Let's have Vital lead off this time.
Cool, I was prepared to go.
Yeah, no one cares.
Yeah, Frankie, you have to sit on the back of this one because you've been skipping some meetings, some shows. No, but to keep up with the happy thoughts, I am out on the Jets. It's like a burden off my back that I've just made this life decision. When you have a toxic relationship, you just gotta, even though it hurts, it doesn't, to shed it. I am just anything Jets. If someone's like, "Hey, you want a value deal? I'll give you Le'Veon Bell for $5 I'm like, I'll pay you $5 to delete that trade for me. I'm so out on this team. While I'm losing the faith that even if they shed Adam Gase midway through the season, I don't think they're going to get the Freddie Kitchens boom that the Browns got. Sam Darnold is he has to come out electric out of the gates after Gase for me to even be yeah, there's a chance. Because we've seen before teams just get a new head coach, they put it together for a little while, and then they Baker Mayfield it, and we're back to wait, were they supposed to be there? No, they were the number 1 overall pick? Okay. But no, they're running Frank Gore out there. Their play decision makes no sense.
Don't forget Kalen Ballage, future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Kalen Ballage, the guy who's better than Kenyon Drake per the Dolphins and Adam Gase. They're a cesspool for fantasy right now, other than defenses. It's real nice starting a legit defense against them because they've got the Broncos, and I'm still not in on that. That's how bad the Broncos are that I don't want to start their defense against them. But I'm just, like I said, just all the way out. Get rid of him if you can. If you've got a Le'Veon Bell homer on your team, just in your league, just send him. Just send him for the peanuts under his chair. Just get him off your team.
You say it's like getting out of a toxic relationship, getting away from the Jets. I think it's more akin to paying off a debt. Woohoo, my student loans are gone. Got that car payment out of the way.
Yeah, I wanted to at least give him a little bit of hope that there was something there, but I guess there just never was. But on to point 2 for me, talking about Darrell Henderson and his great game that he had yet again. I think this is both a point 2 that Sean McVay still has it as an offensive coordinator, and whoever is the RB1 on this team, you want him. So if you're sitting there looking at your Malcolm Brown ownership, or your Malcolm Brown owner, if you're holding Cam Akers, hold on to him. If they can take this job at any point, you want him. So don't be the guy who, Akers is hurt, I'm going to drop him, or Malcolm Brown hasn't produced in 2 weeks, because it's all been the Darrell Henderson show. Hold on to these guys as best you can, or try and send them to Darrell. If I'm the Darrell Henderson owner, I might go talk to some of these guys and be like, yeah, they're not producing. I'll trade you something off my bench to just lock up that backfield, because having this backfield clearly has value, and if you can pick the guy, we're looking, 10-plus fantasy points a week. That's great flex starter right there.
Well, and especially in a season like this, look at how many injuries we've had through the first 3 weeks. Cool, Darrell Henderson's the guy now. If he gets hurt, cool, then Malcolm Brown's the guy. He gets hurt, cool, Cam Akers comes back, he's the guy.
Yeah, what happens when his leg just spontaneously explodes running down the field?
Yeah, I don't want to pump too much hope in him, because then we know what will happen in week 4. But no. And then to just round it out, Pittsburgh D, they're legit. The steel curtain is back. Believe it. Just, if you're even thinking about it, fade your running backs against these guys. I wanted to test them last week with Melvin Gordon, and I got lucky that one play bailed out that day and gave me double-digit fantasy points. Do not do that. Don't get cute with it. Unless you have an absolute locked-in stud on a good team, do not start a running back against these guys. You will regret it. They just fed DJ his lunch all game. People are now he looks worse, and I think people are panicking a little bit. I think I reduced that panic just a little bit. It's the Steelers. Like, they, for some reason, should have so many more championships than they should because their draft, whoever drafts for them, he should get all the money.
It's Mike Tomlin's not a good coach. We know that.
I've been on the anti-Mike Tomlin, but like he at least still produces, so he has a job, and it's sad because he's never going to lose that job until they start like just bottom of the barreling. But
I would argue the talent he has is pretty hard to not produce.
Yeah, like you look back at all the just like Hall of Famers, top guys that he's had. He should have so many more rings. You just avoid this like the plague, like the Bears were last year to start, and like the Bears of old, the Vikings when they were hot. Like this is just that defense. You fade it as much as possible, especially on the ground. Like we know Saquon got hurt in that game, but Saquon still didn't look good. Like so for me, just I'm out. I'm out on I'm out against whoever's playing against them, and I'm out on the Jets. So when that matchup finally happens, I am so out. I'm in a different stratosphere when the Jets play the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Do you think it's possible for an offense to put up 0 points against the Steelers?
Yes. Yep. 100%.
All right.
I actually think technically, if you want to count it, I would say an offense could go negative because if they get safeties, I think the Jets could be the first people to do that.
All right, I'll go into my takeaways here. First one is one that I was hoping for preseason, but I wanted to be able to see it to believe it. Rodgers looks really good through 3 weeks. He's not taking sacks. He's pushing the ball downfield. He's getting it to multiple guys. I think we're officially at a point where you can say that Rodgers, number one, no matter who it is someone you need to be putting in your lineup, and I am fine starting his number two most weeks as well. Unless you're facing like a real tough pass defense. It's looking like Lazard probably is the number two in that offense. You're going to want pass catchers tied to Rodgers. If they keep playing like this, I may have to eat some crow on Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is tied to Rodgers and therefore looks good. Devontae Adams obviously was, looking awesome before he got hurt. And Rodgers is just three vintage Rodgers performances in a row. Looking at the guy's stats here, his worst performance so far of the year was 240 yards, but that was still good for almost 20 fantasy points against the Lions. And, that one was just because he didn't really need to throw it that much to beat the Lions because the Lions are just a bad football team. The other two performances, he's thrown it for 44 and 32 times. Sign me up. Because quarterbacks are depressed value in a lot of leagues, if I don't have one of these locked-in starters, a Kyler or a Dak or a Russ, Mahomes, Lamar, probably if I don't have one of those five, I might shoot the Rodgers owner a trade offer and just see if they're willing to part with him, seeing as, most people just devalue the quarterback. You might be able to get him for less than what he's actually worth, and he could be really good for your fantasy team.
I just want to know what kind of deal he made with the devil to go back to his prime. This is looking like vintage Rodgers out there.
To be fair, he never really stopped looking like that from a accuracy perspective and a efficiency perspective. He just wasn't throwing as much. It just seems like he's going back to making those riskier down the field plays that we used to see him make to Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. Except now he's doing it. It seems like he trusts his number two more, I think, is really what it comes down to. Because Devontae Adams has always been good, but for a while it was just Devontae Adams. If Alan Lazard and MVS are both going to be legitimate fantasy players for Rodgers, I think that contributes a lot to his ability to move the ball down the field.
And Aaron Jones worked in the receiving game too. He's been going on a lot of out routes.
Yeah, honestly, for me, it's a two-parter that I touched on briefly in the beginning, but I think it's just the two-parter of they drafted a guy to replace him, like clearly to replace him, and I think that had a minor, Brady with Garoppolo effect. Where
sure, when you're one of these greats, that's always a little bit of a spark.
Yeah, he's just showing I am your quarterback. You don't need this guy. Like it's just that little fitness craw just to kind of get him going, and then on top of that, their team remembered that they have Aaron Rodgers. They can lean on him to win them games. They don't need to shift. Like they're not. He's not waning to the point where they need to shift to a running style like with Brady last year.
Yeah, it's fun watching him though. And then another guy that's pretty fun to watch. I'm going back to another Kyler take here, just because he did have a bad game. It was a bad game, but it wasn't a bad game like we saw from Kyler last year. This was a game where he threw the ball 35 times. He made 3 interceptions in this game, but he still had solid fantasy points thanks to him throwing two touchdowns through the air and 1 on the ground. Kyler is still really good at football. I mean, if you watched that game, like, the decision making obviously was a little off, hence the 3 picks, but he acknowledged that in the post game conference. So you're obviously he's not deflecting. He's taking fault. He's going to work on it. We've seen that he has elite accuracy and elite arm strength. He just needs to make sure he's calling the right plays at the line, or picking the right receivers to throw to. And what I like even more than the fact that even with 3 picks, he still threw for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns, is the fact that he still buoyed that as well with 5 rushes for 29 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. I mean, it looks like Kyler is the best running back on the Cardinals, as well as their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we do have as much as I want to dump on Patricia for his use of running backs that are second round picks on his team. Besides that, he is still a defensive minded coach, and we saw what he did with New England. So he still knows how to scheme against quarterbacks. And during his years with Bill, he's always had a very good track record against young quarterback and running quarterback. So I think this is an example right here. This is your floor.
Yeah,
right here. He's not
going to throw over 3 picks every game.
Right, and like I said, so in his worst games, he's still going to be like, he is not going to hurt you. So I think that's what you're getting with that price that you had to pay for Kyler for that 5th, 6th rounder.
Yeah,
you're getting a consistent floor with good highs.
And he's got a really nice schedule coming up too. I mean, he's got Carolina, Jets, and then Dallas, Seattle, bye week. So he's probably not going to score very many points that week. But then Miami, Buffalo, Seattle. He doesn't face another tough defense until week 12 when he gets New England. So he's someone who I was encouraged by his performance, honestly, because he did have those games last year. He scored you like 6 points because he wasn't really running. And when he threw a lot of picks, his passing volume was tended to be down. So it's like it's nice to see that Cliff Kingsbury is just sort of letting him play out there, and they're not taking the ball out of his hands when he throws a pick. And then my final one, this one is just simple. I was on this train before the season. I never really got off this train. Bears QBs are bad news. I saw Mitchell Trubisky get benched mid-game. I laughed. They put in Nick Foles. I was like, all right, here goes a win for the Falcons. Somehow Foles pulled that win out because the Falcons trying to get Trevor Lawrence? I don't know. But somehow the Falcons lost the game to the Nick Foles-led Bears. And honestly, on paper, Nick Foles kind of looked okay. You see what he does, and you're like, sure. I can get behind that. He looked really bad. From the first throw to the last throw, the throw he made to win the game, he looked really bad. He looked like a backup quarterback who didn't start over Mitch Trubisky.
Would you say that Bears quarterbacks are bad news Bears?
I would say they're unbearable. Like, I know he threw 16 for 29, 188 yards, three touchdowns and a pick, but like, I don't want him. I don't want him. I don't want people attached to him. I guess I'll take Allen Robinson because he's getting volume. But it's like, and like I said when we touched on Tariq Cohen, it's like you're still starting Dave Montgomery, you're still starting Allen Robinson. You might still be starting Anthony Miller if you have to because of injuries. But you don't want to. Like, nothing about this team screams confidence, and I hate the entire quarterback situation. I'm similar to you with the Jets. I'm just kind of out on the Bears. I don't want to have to deal with anyone that's receiving the ball from them, and I can't believe this team didn't go out and get Cam Newton in the offseason. Frankie, what are your 3?
Well, as being one of the guys who went out and dropped those fat fab dollars on Mike Davis, pretty much got what I expected. Kind of sucks it had to be against the Chargers. He looked fine out there. 46 on the ground, 45 through the air. The score kind of saved him, putting him in double digits. But, I mean, he's pretty much looking exactly how I expected. He's going to be that, like, budget version of CMC. I'm kind of worried about Curtis Samuel because he did get some work out of that backfield, which was not entirely surprising, but still, I mean, Mike Davis is, like I said, he looked comfortable out there.
Yeah, I mean, the writing was on the wall that Curtis Samuel was going to take some work.
And I mean, I guess they need somebody else to run behind their guy who's running behind somebody else. Yeah, that's pretty much it for him. I mean, maybe in a better matchup we'll see more, but I think that this is pretty much what to expect. I mean, I'm not expecting those blowout CMC games. I'm expecting those kind of like middling running back games.
You don't expect Mike Davis to have blowout CMC games? Whew! Hot take.
Yeah, I mean, in a season like we're having right now with all these injuries, his value is inflated just because, who else are you going to start? So I think he should be fine as a flex start for going through the season. If you've got the depth because you picked him up, I would try and either hold on to him or package him and try and move for something. Like sell depth to someone who just lost some more pieces this week. There could be a guy just sitting there and sobbing in front of his keyboard because he just has all the guys that have gone down permanently and just.
Do you want Mike Davis?
No.
Kenny Golladay, finally back, finally out on the field, taking some snaps. Again, unfortunate, another tough matchup. But I'm happy. I watched the game. I mean, he had Patrick Peterson on him. That's pretty much expected. I mean, obviously, being the guy on that offense, you're going to get shot by the team's top corner. But, I mean, 6 for 7, coming off an injury, I'm not mad about it. He did have that kind of that luck with the reach across the goal line for that score. So, I mean, I expect to see more of him in the red zone this season because...
Sure.
I mean...
He's a really good receiver, tied to a really good quarterback, tied to a team that has a terrible defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why... for me, that's why I was loving that people were down on Stafford, and I was able to scoop him up in our league. After waivers cleared on Wednesday, I saw someone dropped him, and I was like, yeah, I'll take him with Kenny G coming back and some more Kenny G going forward. I mean, we knew Kenny himself said he was not 100% going into this game. So 100% drawing a top corner in the league. The ceiling wasn't really there for him this week, but seeing him catch 6 for 7, and as somebody who was kind of down on Kenny for his catch percentage, I like to see that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, speaking to both of your guys' points, I mean, we're at the point where the preseason will be ending, and everyone's kind of in that NFL game speed. I mean, now he's obviously, this is probably going to be one of his toughest matchups of the season. Obviously not 100%. He's going to go out. I mean, I don't think this is his ceiling at all. I think he's gonna have those boom games, especially in better matchups. And I mean, I'm looking forward to being a Kenny Golladay owner this season, barring he doesn't have any more injuries.
I don't think that's real wood, Frankie.
That is totally real wood. What are you talking about? No, but I mean, the benefit is it's kind of an up and a down for Kenny G owners. They get New Orleans, who people can score on, and then he gets a bye, so he gets 2 games to ramp up to game speed. Then he gets a rest. And then you have him for the rest of the year, and that buys, in the window for you, in the rear view. So, yeah, I'm in on Kenny G.
And,
what's your final take?
Well, you talked about Rodgers.
I did.
You brought up, the fact that Russ is one of those locked-in guys. I remember vaguely at some point on the show, I said Russ could be that guy this year. He could be that number 1 QB. And as much as I love Mahomes and Lamar, who have both looked fine, Russ going out there 38 attempts, 28 attempts, 40 attempts with 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. 1 pick there. I mean, he's definitely getting the reps in. He's definitely getting that volume in the throwing. I mean, I think it's going to be let Russ cook season. I mean, especially with Carson going down. I mean, Hyde is fine. I mean, he's not Chris Carson, but I think it'll be interesting to see after, the bye when he doesn't really have any defensive tests before, he's going to have Miami at home and Minnesota.
Sure.
Both teams have shown you can throw on them throughout the season already.
He's going to pull back. That's the thing. It's like he's on pace for 75 touchdowns right now.
I don't see him getting there.
He's going to pull back. So like fantasy managers should enjoy this while it lasts. They're not going to get bad Russell Wilson, because I don't think bad Russell Wilson really exists. But they are going to get, just more mortal Russell Wilson than what we're currently seeing.
Now, just to put it out there for both of you guys, with him having a juicy matchup next week, and his bye coming in week 6, do you try and sell him off these 3 high games?
Oh, yeah.
And then on top of that, you can sell that next week you're getting Miami. Like, he's going to cook again. And personally for me, I'm selling. I'm ready to sell.
I don't think it's often you can sell a quarterback, but I would absolutely try and flip him for maybe, see if you can flip him for Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes.
I think he has that Lamar Jackson or Pat Mahomes appeal right now where he's having that boom start of the season. And then after the bye, you look, he's got Arizona, San Francisco, Buffalo, LA, back to Arizona again. That's not real. Russ, his ceiling, is the moon. His floor.
He's a very safe ceiling and floor player. But you are going to see less, and especially with Carlos Hyde being his starting running back now, you are going to see a less efficient offense. People are going to slow them down. The Seahawks themselves might just not play this fast moving forward. They've been in a lot of shootouts so far.
Yeah, that's a lot of throwing for, in his career.
There's going to be games where they aren't, like, they've played 3 teams so far they've had to throw against.
Yeah.
There's going to be games coming up that they aren't going to have to throw, or the offense is going to be less efficient. They're going to find people are going to scheme ways to stop them, or at least slow them down, because I don't think you can stop the Seahawks entirely. And we all know that Pete Carroll does just like to play a slower style game, so it wouldn't shock me if there's games where, especially with Carlos Hyde, there's more of a grinder than Chris Carson, where we just see Carlos Hyde just chug forward for 4 yards a carry for 23 carries, and they win like that. You are absolutely seeing Russell Wilson's ceiling right now. If you expect this to continue, I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you.
Yeah, I think that, especially in that 5-game stretch, touchdown regression has to happen. He's not going to be throwing for 4 or 5 a game. Yeah,
those defenses are still legit, and I think the other part to Miami is you can sell somebody on that being a good game for him. I think it's going to be a sneaky bad game. Like I said, like we talked about.
Because they could get up fast and then just run.
Yeah, they could just run. I could easily see him having a vintage Russell. He's not going to hurt you. He's going to get 225 and 2 touchdowns, no picks. And you're just going to see Carlos Hyde in the ground get to 100 because he gets enough carries. And he'll have a good day because it's Miami and they're just trying to get out of this game.
Honestly, if I'm saying who I'm honestly targeting to get, I'm obviously going to try and get Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. I don't know if you can get them because of the draft capital spent on them. If I'm a Russell Wilson manager, I'm seeing if I can flip him for Kyler. Kyler's a really easy schedule this year. There's not a lot of bad games for Kyler. You know Kyler's a safe floor because of his rushing upside. I don't think you're losing. I don't think the gulf between what Russell gives you and what Kyler gives you is that big. But Kyler, I think, has a much more consistently high ceiling because he runs more than Russell Wilson. So moving forward, as the season goes on, I think you potentially could see more big games, especially because of the bad matchups, good matchups for Kyler. I think you can see more big games fantasy-wise out of Kyler Murray than you do Russell Wilson, especially if you're in a 4-point passing touchdown league.
Yeah, honestly, for me, similar route. I would actually go talk to the Aaron Rodgers owner.
I was going to say that.
I would flip him because you might be able to get Rodgers plus. I would go for Rodgers.
That's the same thing with Kyler. You can probably get someone with Kyler if you're flipping him for Russell.
The only problem with this whole thing that I see is, depending who you're talking to, whoever owns these guys might not think they need a QB or to trade for a QB.
Right. But it's hard to say no when you have someone offering you Russell Wilson, when you've seen what Russell Wilson's done over, not everyone's thinking about it obviously he's going to pull back. A lot of people are looking at Russell Wilson with just stars in their eyes.
Yeah, so what I was going to say there is, the reason why I go for Rodgers over Kyler is because the Kyler owner still spent about the same draft capital as him, and he could be thinking like, you know what, Kyler's still doing me fine. I don't want to give up Kyler plus. But the guy who drafted Rodgers got him late.
That's a fair point.
So that guy's looking like, I'm getting a win. I'm basically trading a 10th round pick all the way up to a 5th round pick. I just got to give up something else. Like, I'm getting Russell Wilson in his MVP season. I'm giving up Rodgers, who I didn't really pay much for. So, yeah, I'm all in.
I mean, you could potentially get someone like Rodgers and Chark for Russell Wilson. I mean, Chark, who he's a big part of that Jaguars offense, but he's been sort of just eking by. And like, speaking as a Chark manager, there's probably a lot of Chark managers out there who are, they're what have you done for me lately? And they're looking at meh game, out. So like there's a chance that you could get someone like that, or maybe you go fishing for, the AJ Green, who's been high target volume, low catches, or Will Fuller, who had a bad week last week and he's still Will Fuller, where everyone seems to have just a weird feeling in their stomach about him. Quote from maybe Deontay Johnson, who has a concussion, even potentially like go fishing for a guy like Juju, who's been kind of up and down this season. I mean, there's a lot of good wide receivers who have been very average so far that I feel like, if you can package Rodgers and someone and get Russell, that's a deal that a lot of managers will make. All right, let's jump into the waiver wire section. I'm going to rattle off some names here. There's not a lot of analysis to be done on most of these guys. QB streamers, it's really just Goff this week as far as who's available and a good matchup. Goff's got Washington. He's 35% owned. If I need a QB streamer, I'm running him out there, but hopefully you already have your QB streamer for this week.
Yeah, I think as far as like just a disclaimer to the whole waiver thing in general, I mean, with the way the season has gone so far, the waiver wire's pretty much picked dry at a lot of positions.
QB is usually more available. There's just not a lot of good streamers this week. And that's one of the downsides of streaming quarterback. Because some weeks you get some dud weeks. The good matchups are all good quarterbacks. At running back, Carlos Hyde is obviously the top ad of the week. I'm comfortable throwing whatever you feel like you need to throw at him to get Carlos Hyde. It's only going to be for a week or two, most likely. So keep that in mind. But we know Carlos Hyde is a serviceable NFL running back on a very good offense behind a guy who does have a tendency to get banged up. So I'm not opposed to, if you're a fantasy manager in need of Carlos Hyde, throwing, 40, 50% of your budget at him. Because if he helps you get a win, or if you're, the Carlos Hyde manager and you need someone to bridge that gap, like that's worth it in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely.
Aside from him, Myles Gaskin available in 45% of leagues, worth an ad if he's still out there. He might not be. And then Jeff Wilson Jr., obviously Jerick McKinnon dealing with those ribs. Raheem Mostert is likely going to miss at least one more week. I'm fine going out there and grabbing Wilson for a spot start and just hoping he gives you some, just touchdown upside and most of the running back equity in that backfield. At wide receiver, we're looking at Justin Jefferson as our top ad. He had a 9-target week, looking like the guy that they drafted him to be. Obviously, he's still going to have his ups and downs. He's a rookie. You don't overvalue him. But he is available in 33.8% of leagues. After him, it's Brandon Ayuk, Greg Ward, James Washington, and T. Higgins. Brandon Ayuk is 16.8% owned. Greg Ward is 0.3%. James Washington is 4.5%. And then T. Higgins is 6.9%. Of that bunch, if I'm needing a wide receiver start, I think I'm going. If I need a wide receiver start, I think I'm throwing at Greg Ward. If I out of that entire group in there, I'm not happy about it, but because of the lack of options in Philadelphia, that he's going to get volume. Like he's not my top. Like if I'm just grabbing someone to grab depth, I'm grabbing Justin Jefferson and then Brandon Ayuk, and then probably Greg Ward. I guess I listed them in order of how I would prioritize them. But if I have a lot of damage done to me at wide receiver, I'm going for Greg Ward over the other guys.
Yeah, Greg Ward is pretty much the only one left in that Philly wide receiver locker room.
Yeah, I mean he's going to have to catch. Someone has to catch the ball.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I would keep an eye on what Alshon Jeffrey's looking like.
Yep.
He was a consideration for this week, but we figured he was just going to be a smokescreen if he did play. That could just be this week. They roll him out there, and Greg Ward's getting the quality targets, and Alshon gets like 2 or 3 just to kind of get him back in the flow.
I'm also not worried about Alshon because he's so perennially hurt that it's like I think if you could be getting a starter for the rest of the season in Greg Ward, because while Greg Ward isn't fantastic, we can't say he's going to stay on the field because he's in Philadelphia, but he's probably going to stay on the field, and that entire receiving core is missing significant time. So he's someone who I'm fine throwing, 25, 30% of your fab at if you really need a wide receiver, because you're going to get a good amount of weeks out of him. Everyone else is really there's 3 rookies on this list. Everyone else is really kind of just speculative in my eyes. I'm adding them if I can, but I'm not going crazy over any of them. Are you guys in the same boat?
Yeah, like I said, this week in general, as far as waiver, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of it.
It's drying up quick.
It's Carlos Hyde, and that's quick. About it. So if you're one of the guys, kind of like me, who missed out on a lot of the other guys because you went in a little more cautious and you didn't need them as much, go in on this week. Grab yourself Carlos Hyde, grab yourself Justin Jefferson, and just stash them away if you don't need them, or start packaging things up for trades.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take the fab with you. Yeah. So
I was just gonna say, we always say you can't take fab with you.
Yeah, you gotta. I mean, at this point with all the injuries,
you gotta start calling your shot.
Yeah, you gotta just roll the dice at this point. I mean, Greg Ward is probably going to be the safest long term.
Yeah. And then at tight end, it's another position where, and we know tight end dries up quick because of how fluky tight end is. Dalton Schultz, if he's still out there, 23.6% of leagues, is looking like he's going to be a legitimate thing. It seems like the Cowboys want the tight end to be part of their offense. Obviously, Blake Jarwin's not coming back. Dalton Schultz should provide, if he keeps getting this target volume, which it looks like he will, he should provide, pretty good fantasy upside for fantasy managers from this point on. And then if you didn't add him last week, which it seems like a lot of people didn't, Mo Cox is still another good spot starter. He's available in most leagues. He's currently rostered in 8.5%. Someone to shoot a claim at if you, lost Jared Cook, who has an ankle injury and is probably going to miss some time.
Ian, were you rostering Jared Cook at all?
I was. I wasn't starting him though. Thankfully, I was starting Hayden Hurst. So
was it thankfully though?
Listen in next week when Hayden Hurst is, laid up in a hospital room somehow. And then to close this segment out, every week we give you guys our streaming defenses of the week. We've got a handful of good ones this week. Our top streaming defense is also the one we told you to stash if you listened to our Thursday episode last week. The Rams, 26% owned, get the Giants. The Rams looked decent, honestly, against the Buffalo Bills, who, they lit them up in the first half, and they managed to get some big turnovers in the second half, turning a solid day for fantasy managers.
The Giants, not so much.
The Giants are far less skilled than the Bills. So they are still our top defense. The next two are a little more frisky-risky. One more so than the other. If you can't get the Rams, the Cardinals make a nice spot start against Carolina. They're 37.7% owned. You guys both agree that they were better. They're better than the third one, which is the one I was pushing. But
we had to really fight over this last one. But the Cardinals, their offense can at least hold the ball, and they've got the options to run both quarterback and running backs, so they can keep the ball out of the Panthers' hands. And I still like the defense overall. Still got Chandler Jones, still got Patrick Peterson. So
yeah, they looked good against Stafford, and I trust Stafford more than I trust Mr. Bridgewater down there.
Yeah, I think they're an improved defense. They're playing a team that doesn't have, its most important offensive weapon. So at the end of the day, I'm pretty okay with it.
So go ahead and let them know about this one you wanted real bad.
This one is one that if you need a streaming defense, obviously I'm not starting them over a lot of defenses in the league.
Please define the word need here.
If you are in need of a streaming defense, if you're someone who doesn't have, like the Steelers or the Ravens, I guess, or if you drafted the 49ers where you're kind of plug and playing defense moving forward, the home defense on a Thursday game is always a good play, or almost always a good play. This week, that defense happens to be the New York Jets.
It is a questionably good play at best.
The upside to this defense, they are the home defense on a short week, playing against a West Coast team with a third-string quarterback who has thrown the ball 9 times in his NFL career.
Yes, all of that. Still the Jets.
9 attempts, no touchdowns, 1 pick.
Who is the third-string quarterback?
That's a great question. I don't even know the guy's name.
I'm starting him in DK this week.
I had to look him up to see who he was because I had never heard of him, and I immediately purged it from my memory because I will likely never hear about him again. I like this play less if Jeff Driscoll can get back out there. I don't know the exact nature of his injury, so I like this play less if it's Jeff Driscoll. But a third stringer who has almost 0 actual NFL game time, going cross-country on a short week, missing his top receiving option, and his second receiving option is banged up, sure. Sign me up for this. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair, and you could see some... worst-case scenario, I think it's a low-scoring affair. Best-case scenario, I think the Broncos turn it over 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I had to kind of guess here because there's a couple other ones. It's either Riley Neal, who doesn't have a picture.
It's not him.
It's Brett Ripon.
That's it, Brett Ripon.
These are the most chalky, pasty, bland-looking, create-a-character white dudes I've ever seen. And like I said, one doesn't have a picture. I know exactly. His name's Riley Neal.
Yeah,
he kayaks in his off seasons.
It's Brett Ripon.
Yeah,
I am not scared. I don't care who the defense. I have a simple theory with streaming defenses, and it's when all else fails, or if it's a good matchup, then definitely do it. But if all else fails, even if it's a bad matchup, start the home defense on a Thursday game because it sucks to be the away team traveling somewhere on a short week. It especially sucks if you're coming from Colorado.
But so you have no fear that this guy's last name is Ripon?
None.
That sounds like a solid last name to me. I mean,
he looked terrible.
Yeah, now they've got time to game plan for him. I'm just saying, and it is the Jets. Like Adam Gase would be like,
it's a very risky play because the Jets suck. But this is process over preference here. I'm trusting the process, and the process says the Jets are a good play.
I don't like that process.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for today.
Yeah. We'll end on a high note there. If the Jets don't perform well, don't at me.
At all over him.
Join us on Thursday when we preview the Thursday night game. It's going to be a very quick preview. When we preview the Thursday night game as well as the first half of the Sunday slate. And then Frankie leaves us again. Till next time, folks.